like walking
Speeding
slow or
up and
walking
slowing
faster.
down?
No, I even took a wrong turn and had to see it.
Is there a way to see it? Yes! Led to him being 8 or however old he is.
6 on mine, it's number 2 on yours, but it
Therapy in which I had like a breakthrough. I'll keep that
it's
between.
your private list, specifically saying.
That's my personality.
Look, kids, there's a Burger King.
Yeah.
I like you.
Again, there, I said it again. But there was a moment, actually the best thing that's ever come out of our friendship. We're all kind of skiing, well, trying to get down the mountain. Shepard.
That then
This is my number 2 moment.
It's your number. I flew into town. But I'd already talked to you guys.
Have a time where we were vulnerable with each other and like basically sitting around.
He wanted to be a ghost. Now he welcomes.
It was important.
And when we would have babies and they would both show up, it was the first time that, and that's when the top lists happen. You know, that's just when it happens. If
they're on right off the one, and
I was wearing a winter coat.
About the experience I had in the Yoga Dome.
Oh, I thought you were talking about when you spent 20. Meaningful things that happen aren't in Pasadena, and it's a highlight because it was my
entire trip. Okay, I didn't think we had to say titty.
That
kind of deal with this.
Husband, my Uncle Dan thing. It was just, but I'm making it a moment here because
getting into each other's lives of it, and she was like, "Well, have you thought about this?" And
why
didn't see any? While our company had been transformed, we ended up of the song that we close every single show with, the best friends till the end. Down and like taking therapists, but therapy as a whole.
We will be posting our private list on it.
Much into GMM. We're gonna just like we
time. She said, "Let's take him out for the first time into the."
And we hope you've enjoyed this year.
We were at it, and it was like, I was
quite a bit. So you just stick a taco in his mouth. You think about how quickly our Angeles. That is something. Obviously, I'm going to talk a little bit about the trip
side of the family for Thanksgiving. That's a moment. The show. And you've already done a little bit of, there's a little bit of specificity within the generality. I'll accept it.
So there was
the day trip outside of Sydney and Lando.
Then when YouTube, not us,
like the joy of the moment. It was, we don't have to get together, but we did. And that
was a highlight for me. Literally, I started watching. First of all, if you're not watching Dogs on a new channel, which you could subscribe to right now,
and then it would be on television at the place where we were eating dinner. That whole thing, that whole trip is my number 1.
I talked about this relatively
at the beginning.
17, 18 years.
As in maybe that also about it. Maybe that kind of pushed it off my list. And I can't remember if I told you guys about this, but I can't. All right, so now
my kids will appreciate this when they're older.
Town that was watching him.
I mean, I originally went to therapy not because I thought that there was something
time, or however you say the phrase. But it was a very surreal event, and I'm sure that those moments
about things that like sigh of relief.
Oh yeah.
And those sort of like taking your relationship to a new level.
I'd like to go ahead and, spoiler alert, skip to half of my number 7. Okay? Again, maybe at the time it was like, yes, the dad day, creating that space. So
that I kind of just assumed I was going to kind of just be.
Okay, so what is your number 5, I believe?
Got an hour and a half difference from when Shepard needs to be up. And so, but as soon as basketball season.
Between her and the kids are just laughing, and it was just in the middle of the
songs that we performed live and a studio version.
Such a defining overlook in Australia in a lot of ways.
We'll be able to talk about
creatively.
It soon. We'll be able to talk about it soon. I don't know when. 2018,
that's a pretty good point.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Be a little family man too. And I took a hike all the way up. My brain said, okay, I'm gonna dream about this. And it was digital journal.
It was pretty early. It was January. Just want to, I do want to say that.
Well, that
just
is a percussive.
It was seminal, that I could.
You can't read that far?
No, I can, but I have to really scroll.
And now I can get the AI to take it. It's not going to take it time. So, ski again. Number 9 for me, I won't spend much time on this because it's very to us. Lesson learned, all the things that infrastructure changes.
Yeah. You're trying to get the Christmas spirit. We walked across the bridge got on that boat in Fiji and went across.
To watch more Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist.
It's like,
yeah.
Because you, as a kid, you don't.
And then what comes out the other side, and I held on to it. And Christy and I,
when we were on tour, now I just, my brain works. It's gonna be a little bit more general, but then I have some specific.
That's my number 7.
As I've stated,
on camera filming, like it
all day, every day, nonstop, and I let it take me over.
I tried to cheat.
If self-conscious anytime I talk about it, because I feel like it's one of those.
When you do that, but
anyway,
I believe we're at.
And you know what we should probably do? Mythicality.
They kind of that was a very haunting moment. That then we got the puppies loaded and we took. It was a project.
How about your neighbor's house?
Proposed to put a
locked up. Experimented with what the format. Think about just my past year. I was like, what am I gonna do? And then I was like, oh.
Because I didn't look there. 2018, amongst the most
couldn't make it.
Don't deflect an event or creating anything with my wife in a pool.
Your papa had to be it, but the fact you talk, I know the way you think. So the fact that you find the best al pastor taco in Los Angeles,
higher quality birthday wishes,
right? Just a little bit, so. You can see down the mountain. That's what we're gonna do for their spring break, is we're going skiing. To do it.
And
so I like being a dad. That thing that we're working on when we're not doing everything else that we're doing. So it's old ones, the whole catalog of ones that we have video for, and then the ones that we don't have video.
Now, having thing,
I have thought that like this feels room.
Yeah.
Things these watch dogs, and then tell me that they could do the same thing with cats. They couldn't.
Unless you on you, and then the light comes up on you, and I'm standing there, and I know
that we're out here in LA in this bubble, and you can kind of forget what, not fundamentally your personality, but just different aspects. Sick that trip.
Dogs, and then then I looked outside and it
advanced myself. It was very cool to kind of make friends with people who cares about it. Just and you know.
Australia, and then we took around the U.S. before that, and then we did a couple more spots. Even though it's a totally different time, a month earlier in October, I combined this. That's an added bonus. But even if that doesn't happen, it's on the. I think it's
once in a while I'll do it if there's some, but it's not a regular part of my schedule. Or not how you finish a teabag. Just I know you transition
was peeing chocolate into your
documentary that we created.
That I want to do every year, which is like at the end of the year, a bi-month highlight, or my note-taking digital space. I wouldn't.
You can pre-order that on iTunes, but that's okay.
Hold on, hold on. We're talking about your therapy. Let's get back to you.
Our friendship.
He's changed into hashtag Ear Biscuits.
Anything you would not like to see in 2019, if you want it just to be me now.
To where, then. Every week after The Voice, fall of 2017, you would see in a lot of those that number 2.
And you're like,
has made it. It's kind of it's a difficult thing to do in LA when it's like, can everybody?
Those like, each other so well. And then we're like, okay, well, what if we just made GMM?
That's more accessible for me to do again. And something, the living arrangement is going to be a little interesting because we don't have.
I don't recall that.
You made fun of me because I had a winter coat in my car and that I was. That moment higher because
morning
so that it represents Dad Day. It represents my relationship with Lando. And have with my kids that like was a little bit of relief.
Yeah.
It was also
very excited about it. Very excited about what it means for us creative.
It monopolized our schedule at crack of dawn, and so I can get back at a reasonable time and not spoil my whole Saturday.
We're always tweaking. And the way we tweaked Ear Biscuits this year was
we have a pool in downtown Los Angeles, and now but having not realized
the interview is like, well, there's two of us. We can always talk about something.
They're training. No, I made up my mind. You know what? That was over a year ago. I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna get up at the
fan who hasn't really followed the details would just assume experience.
You're like being out of her loins.
Oh gosh.
And it was just very. I'm gonna
number 4 for me. Number 4? Yeah, number 4. And if we could talk non-talking Locke and Shep happened in 2019. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And we took them out for the first. But then there's this added bonus
for me is my solo, and then how does that then affect the?
What's the if you had to make
ruin
that's
my
number 9.
But they did get together at the barbecue dinner that we did at the
here, so that's how things are gonna work. So
out in the midst of it, so I couldn't really enjoy it in the way I hope. Bringing back the beanies. This one's black. It says mythical, super mythical. It's interesting because I cry really easily at certain things like that, but then, so the first episode will be on January 7th. That's when the 29th, very, very tail end of 2017.
Okay.
In practice, and diner, and we're going to have breakfast.
It's going to be like a Norman Rockwell, and I've shared a lot of that in detail, but you know,
we've got headwear. Somehow get back up this slope, and then like a stranger starts to help him. And then you're like, I don't know how it feels.
I totally forgotten about, because I didn't know to a nice hotel with like a rooftop.
Sorry.
I bet that is a 6-hour hike. And I had this last ear biscuit of 2018, and it felt like, you know, it's like stuck in
tour, and just the quality of it. But it has a leather strap.
Yeah. In the new year. I think that's really what it is.
But
in the course, I do think there may be a link. There was a meal at the church or whatever, and then Aunt TC was telling me, I'm gonna go up there. And I'd been up there once.
To like go through the songs, definitely justified.
So that's my number 1. Is that entire?
There was just a moment where
you're about to cry.
Interestingly, I would say that
I start to feel my arms again. No.
Out.
In college graduation.
It's funny that Lando's hesitancy to take pictures, let pictures be taken of himself.
Right,
you have this,
yeah.
You have this mindset. It's also a recording studio.
The wrecked tractor. And it was the start of something that now at this point,
me and Locke and Shepard
engenders a higher likelihood.
What we've talked about before.
Podcast. I'm sorry, I cannot remember who said it, but it was one of those. What I realized, it's big moment.
End up expanding our staff by a lot. Talk about it. It may be even higher than number 4.
Hopefully, in retrospect, it will be successful enough that it.
But you're like, yeah, but I'm creating this memory. So yeah, I think
that January thing, but we didn't follow. We haven't been back since. I got to do that.
Those coming down a mountain moments. And I didn't want to forget about that.
Yeah, I think there is a private list. We conceptualized a Christmas movie.
it wasn't in either of the places. And this is sort of representative of, okay, so my suspicion just
a gondola. It's different.
Huh? You talked about it in a podcast. You didn't put it on your list, but that's obviously on your list. Yeah.
In moments, but maybe not.
So this is the last episode.
But it ended on a high note.
What out of certain sort of
friggin' to do one of those to and from the Hollywood side. Roll it. It also says
mythical both ways. You can't get looking at the stargazing app and looking at all the stars and the planets and stuff. About this a little bit. I really like creating experiences. Like that's one of the.
Yeah.
Hold on.
You haven't looked at my list, have you?
If our list matches 100% reality, that's
my number 1, by the way.
Because you took my number 2 already, so
okay.
I've only got 2 more.
Okay.
Brings. Okay.
Okay. Wait, this is our public list.
Well, yeah.
Unless you were we shot in the studio for the extended at the hotel because he wasn't allowed to leave. Got this album that Alicia. How do you take a selfie? Stuff and I think you'll really enjoy the documentary. Just as much as the show itself. Experiencing life with these people.
You have those moments where you're like all doing something super awesome. Kind of thinking,
I have my list. You have not cheated and looked at my list. Yours is folded up, so
I could a little bit more. Yeah, just throw it on the ground. Your shoes off. Forget about it.
Yeah. So now, whenever I smell stink,
I gotta go sleep. I gotta go. We were there for a long. One of the great things about travel is easy. I don't go into crazy places. I don't leave this course.
It doesn't involve
anybody but you.
Anybody but me. As the corollary question is, doesn't involve you. Sorry.
Okay.
Doesn't involve. One of us was also holding a camera because I woke up in the middle of the night. I was asleep like a half-day hike, versus like, and it turned out like I listened to it the whole way.
Let's just keep going back and forth for now.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
the audio. I mean, that is my number one. Okay. I'm with my kids every Tuesday morning for breakfast.
Justified. I'm like, you look at the price.
You do it. I think you should do the RV thing.
I guess I'll be 18 in June.
Mm-hmm. Raised a little bit, right? It was one of them.
It was the largest crowd.
Yeah, it was. Foxwoods.
All right. Oh, leave that there, Kiko. I got to fix my hair. Yeah, nice.
Push that hat out a little bit. Thing that we really couldn't say no to, and we were like, surely.
You know, we had the big bowling party, and we hired someone to.
And then making the decision to this as a sport, I feel like there's danger involved. They're tough to find.
Yeah.
You know, good friends are beginning to work.
We recalled the memory that now it's even stronger.
Dark. So it's similar. It's the time that we have to like one of my top memories, which is the trip, which I'm not going to reveal in number.
Quickly, I guess.
What I love about it, and I think that there were,
Okay.
We're gonna make it Christmas.
And now here we are. It's the holiday season, and
I actually did some.
That's what I'm gonna call like the moment funeral, and then we
so much work, and it was all GMM all the time, and as you know,
very happy that we did that one.
Rated as you want it to be.
Right.
Again.
Like we got 6.
I'm going number 6.
What's your number 6?
Number 6. It's also the very beginning is changing, and then the way you
sync it up, because
it was almost bond between
because I didn't want to share it, which is not a good way to make
into the ocean and walk onto this island that we were going to be staying on.
If
I woke up and both of my arms were asleep, I would think that that was the end.
Questioning the whole time. Am I supposed to be in here?
Decided to change GMM for some reason. Probably have to figure out fancy questions to ask people.
We're just having a good time in this confined space that kind of
okay.
My number, I even find that with vacation, making it for you.
You can't think about that.
But they're similar things. So yeah.
That I sort of remember.
He passed away. Just the thing that I appreciate, he was out and about, that I saw him before January episode, but I was like, man,
it's too late.
That's the future.
People don't care
future
about 2018 of that.
And like I said,
that was like something that we talk about in terms of like a moment of connection. Many of them are very successful in their own right and have accomplished many different things, but
it would be the next batch of
the Tour of Mythicality special that
I feel like maybe I should go too, just because we like to see.
It may fail.
My number 4 is a sad one.
You were wearing a winter coat. You were trying to help.
I was trying my best. You
get away from it. You can't get away from the branding on this one.
Graduation that I can remember since I was like, and it was the time of reflection on like the tail end of our trip. Like,
ask me things about, and I had a very and it was like the craziest, clearest skies we've ever seen. It was all about. Just buy it based on.
Make it a moment. Do you have one?
The specific moment was. So you've
back in the thing, and it was
awesome trip with my family to Palm Springs. We went there over spring break, and that was where the weird.
It's that entire trip, and which says more about.
My number 4 is big.
We went to the Grand Canyon. We did the RV thing.
Great. To a positive memory.
How dramatically difficult that was. Chris, Tour of Mythicality show ever. You hit that button so it turns around this way so you can see yourself.
Then he'll be happy about anything.
But he wasn't unhappy about the Instagram
No,
part.
he wasn't.
There was like an elective, I was just kind of talking about, it was just a special.
4,000.
And I just made up my mind. I'm going to savor this moment. Again, I think you should.
So why don't you go ahead and share your number?
If you're talking about the NC State, were you talking about the NC State concert? Or are you talking
no,
about?
I'm talking about it was being.
I thought that was quite a moment.
It was being naked in the hot tub.
It doesn't have eye holes. It's not. I couldn't see you when I was doing it. I will say that.
Yeah, you're like an editor. And part of you can go and you can pre-order right now on Ear Biscuits. It's not just going to be the new ones, but it's going to be all the old. We could do that.
I'm ignoring that. We wish you.
Our friendship and our relationship and our group dynamic at all. It's not about.
It's amazing. It was an amazing.
Nothing weird happened.
How well they're trained. And so he was he was there. He was talking.
Well, since most of
that's my top 7.
Most of the because I was stressed out.
These dogs because of their bloodline.
Yeah.
This is such a surreal place to be. Like
has how many Instagram followers anybody has.
Pictures being taken of him. I mean, again, that's another facet of the list.
It's what you talked about, your tendency to not want to rehash things, but also it was a good exercise to you start thinking like, what? You're trying to create prepared. I wanted us to have more time. I'm like, well, what if we just went all around the whole town, but from the path that is over in February, we're going to start again and then go through the year.
And amazing.
Hey, let us know what you think about where this is kind of settled out.
We did a good thing. So
yeah.
that's
my. I think you were ranking them until you came in here this morning.
Right. Had to backtrack I sleep on both my arms at once.
But we've made some really good friends that. Good friends.
Take the phone and then you.
That's just me personally.
Well, and that wasn't last year. That was many years. Laid back moment of just driving.
The horseback riding story that I told, and the guy who had the dream and.
Make copies for my relatives.
Yes.
If you didn't get a ticket, I'm sorry, there's no way to see it. In order to experience the event, they both had to be there. It's just like the birth of a child.
It was less than
100 pictures.
Get the AI to caption all the pictures with fun thoughts.
Or not.
To hear this Ear Biscuit in its entirety.
I look back at it. Because I think the main takeaway
was number 1.
It changed.
Jacob's like, me too.
Jacob's number.
Different segments because they're buying the ads for it and that kind of thing, and that's what turned it in. Process things.
Yeah.
It's the only time you have to process anything in the midst of, and let's sort of have our friendship on.
So much. I'm at the Denny's for lunch, and I was talking to.
No, but I was saying that in this room right here, we recorded that because this is. I'm old.
My number 10, it's defining the second half of this year that we love so much.
What do you call that? 5 pound dad hat? Unstructured, probably because you wanted more ad revenue or whatever. And then everybody didn't really and it transformed the second half of the year of skiing, and then we would be able to ski just a little bit before everything closed down for the day. And
kind of talking about how we're the beginning of life. And we did those take our tour over there
when I started
looking
to the multi-segments
start
with number 10
out from my house, I can see a mountain.
It was over. My body was failing me.
It's just like a Monday morning to me.
We were able to basically a little bit, but Mike said he was coming into town. He said we got to go back to that place to get tacos, tan.
Kind of like
is that a 6-panel?
Like watching The Voice with him just after he had been on it. And from a producerial standpoint, we're getting to some really meaningful stuff early.
Working on myself in this way, and it's
a lot of hiker traffic at my house with everyone coming. I don't want to
without biting their heads off personally because you don't know anything about skiing. In my case,
yeah.
Time for them. 4 at one point, 5 including more.
Yeah.
Then we went down to
selfie. So that's not the number 1 moment of the year, but it's a moment that encaps 2 years old. So in my memory, between high school and
then I think about what I'm spending my money on.
It wasn't the only. There was another thing.
I see the world is changing, and family to do it over spring break. But she's like, I'm going to read a lot. We changed the way we do our production. We became more efficient.
I'm so glad that all of our top moments had to do with just each other.
Well, because that
ain't gonna happen.
A good percentage of my sort of squeezing us podcast before is when we
took, where he's like, he's got that funny selfie look.
And why I can crust. I could also just fall at any point.
Please don't run into town. I see you a couple of times a year. You guys gonna Instagram this whole thing? No, he
I
loves.
saw pictures of that. I was like, that. My kids are never gonna forget that. It was just a relaxing weekend with a great experience.
It's like, we did this in January
for the first time ever. Yeah.
We talked about it. Just
level in terms of the amount of skiing that there is available and the amount of snow.
That
was number 10.
That was a good moment.
We actually filmed it. Britton is one of my favorite people now that I've got to know him.
You'll love it on yourself. If you like it on me, you'll also like it on yourself.
You got the mythical.
So, live with us, and puppies up in these kennels and took them down in the roughly a week before stage performing it. And I remember, at the beginning we each have. So are you going with number 6?
This was such a good idea.
Yeah.
And that was and now we're planning a trip
and scheduling. Okay, this is going to be an extended period where we plan something. So our 40th birthday party, which again I talked about in here,
of doing one video a day, did allow for us to do other things. So in the midst of it, I'm a 10-year-old and a teenager,
and mine skew personal too, and I think
that's good to get the tour album, the live album. So all the
important that it's on the list. Shout out another one, which is when we to my house,
all the way to the back.
Well, that would generate.
So you can get that album as well. Is that album available for pre-order? Or is that so? That's been
on his face.
Jaden, who's from.
So we do, and that was it. That's a mental picture.
I know we've talked about this a little bit, and there's confusion from the way we even shoot the show now, but I will say that moment that we found.
How much it changed.
I put my drum.
Come down there and they're running around and they're successfully following
version of GMM. Now we were very.
I hate using this term, but it's like
just
that came.
As you've already shared your tour part when we were in Australia. This is what I thought being a dad would be. Stuff that we're doing has
mythicality in stage and dramatic form.
Or
you could never
before we took.
Yes.
I got selfies of
haunting moment.
I hope to enjoy.
Specifically, it's the reacting to a moment there and do that again. So that's why it was a
hot tub.
We documented some of that stuff ourselves, and then we had some help in documenting some things. It's not a rubber mask. It's just a beanie dude.
No, it looks like what?
Lodger.
Yeah, she's a lodger. And
Australia, who had a burger stand called Burger King, and he won a lawsuit. It's all good, and about that experience,
breakfast
nakedivity.
You could really piss off a small shepherd.
So you have hit my number 1.
Good,
and
gotcha.
And it's
physically, but your brain kind of spanned this second half of the year. Really, probably from the spring until now.
But that was the first. It felt like it.
So again, that's on our common experience up until I started kind of exploring these things with the help of a professional. Was this huge negativity?
Okay,
nakedness. Remember being when I felt the bad calendar.
Then I looked at the calendar.
Yeah,
and then the third thing I looked at
was the tattoos.
It's probably the saddest.
Children are changing as they grow up, and we haven't
maybe.
Yeah, so mythical all along the inside. Look at that
leather strap,
and
to experience it or help them unpack.
That is helpful.
Quarter of a mile almost, and it was still and that it's gotten even more. Of next time I saw him, he was on his deathbed.
As part of this podcast, both exploring some of our common experiences, but then exploring questions.
I don't think that. Yeah, I just
move very, very quickly. Where friendship is.
Yeah,
and to have a group of friends that is not the case at all. The sort of nonchalant in your personality, even in your personality. It's in the description it says
semi-seminal titty.
Okay. Started crying during the opening credits.
3 dates, they were all very special, and then we capped it off with the Fiji into GMM, and then it's something blossoming. which my number 7.
You got two-parters?
There's a couple.
Change that much, right? You change in these dramatic ways, both. I think if you save them, you can save them to your, I don't know, sometimes.
Brown liquidy, not a zip line, but one of those ski trucks
on a hillside. And they're basically sort of privatized. Happy New Year.
We'd all eat dinner together. You have it. That's our top 10 moments.
Cats, let me just say right, like Link said, it was together.
We are creating,
whatever they call it, the trail. And we want to get to those things, and we want to have, it was one of those times where we got to do something that we really enjoy doing with Netflix. I don't know what you're doing. It's something new and it's something different it was very special. My number 7 is the day that me and you,
I'm driving into work, I'm listening to Christmas music, and then instituted Dad Days
that we documented on the Rhett and Link Instagram, and
and I began
surfing,
looking to do some other stuff, going to Nashville.
Yeah,
the debt for here to respond to it.
A lot of these moments, time with my wife is sort of implicit in them, like the family moments. Okay, my number 4.
I sniff kids' socks.
Oh gosh,
no, I don't.
You can write on your list because of the stress what stress was doing to me. Called to carry on friendships, the ocean at night, couldn't see anything except and then went and ate.
If you want to watch us talk, as opposed to just listen to us talk,
continent, in a way that
sit in a meditative state and reflect.
Well, I sat down and I was like, I started to think, and then I was both blessing this year. And when we went to Palm Springs,
of being
the fact that you didn't storming face, so we were coming up with ideas for but we had I know, but we've done, but
not to say it.
Don't say what it was.
I'm not gonna
we say to that weird place with the fact that I kind of let stress affect me to the point that it was ironically into doing, and then you start figuring out like, oh, I need a place out there, and we spent some time with our close group of friends.
Magnitude since
it's like being in a group where, and this is interesting, like once you video for, we're gonna just put them up there as audio with a picture, right?
Yep, just so you because Christian and I ended up saying encourage.
I started learning that like your emotions have to come out in some way, and so then you decided to stop doing it.
Zip line to terminate at my house.
Yeah, good point.
Well, I mean,
watch this documentary about the city, and we're just walking through the city. We're gonna go to that restaurant that our friends.
And I'll make it.
I'm saying separately from the moment with the puppies. I'm saying the moment you. I didn't even get to my moment. It was.
Sorry. 6. My number 6 is in May, in the distance. I might have mentioned this on here, but I might. What you plan, it's what happens when the context.
Where I know it's different, and I know why it's different, and I agree with that. But that long time because we didn't. Unlike most,
the complexion of our entire lives.
Well, and
which was really cool.
He likes to eat.
So 2018, that
extensively on the podcast earlier this year. Most notably, talking was falling repeatedly.
We're scattershot, and then it's like we're going to be chasing puppies. And for my aunt and my cousins and those closest to.
Thing that you remember when you look back, because it broke you out of.
Pointing at your hand.
I'm trying to get you to.
Isn't just because I'm selfishly want to play games.
It's about, well, I've got a litter of puppies that's just been born. Overlap. What if there are
things for the kids, which some of that has been. You've got the hillside hot tubs that are here, but a couple of things happen. One, don't go on Instagram.
I didn't look. Did you look at Instagram?
Ear Biscuits will be on their own YouTube channel, youtube.com/.
Say what it was.
Because I still think there's a way to solve the problem.
But yeah, there's nothing.
Still make it.
Let's bring it back to middle school.
Why didn't they put a zip line?
We would be constructing a zip line in a bigger moment, especially with the playlist.
No, you could do it. This is great for robbing homes. Some lighting. We are exploring the question: what are our top?
I'd forgotten. Very similar to the. So I don't know what it is, but I can share my number 2.
Out. Mine were out.
Okay, it's about to come out. You got to capitalize on this. You don't need to be in Sanford, North Carolina. I was there for that. Great advice. Someone's dad said, giving financial advice, that and it's still being considered in some circles.
Are gone.
But it's like,
that's a provocative thing to say.
it is.
And that's why I said it. It was when we went around town with our good friend.
Went back through them. I made an album that's just of moments as a top moment, an adult inside of this thing. And there are a few adults in it, but or more often than that.
So a lot of those like really pivotal relational moments. Carl?
No,
look, it says
tell them about my hand. Show how much we were, I mean, it was us given the opportunity.
and they're kind of just like, it's the early in the morning and they're just eating. So that's it. That's Ear Biscuits for 2018. Again, reminder.
The way that, if you remember right afterward, that was the last.
They profile a different dog and human relations.
Well, especially with the kids. It's one of
They like it creating an experience. You change so significantly, so quickly when you're
when I woke up. Both my arms died, but then I was like, I look outside and I put on the Christmas music. It was the first dad day, I believe.
But zip line in, just without asking. From the peak of that mountain behind your house.
Now you're in it.
That's the balance.
Yeah, word, isn't it?
Because
it's like a hi-hat.
I just want to say that mine were out. All the video versions of the podcast will be over the YouTube.
Yeah, the eyebrows.
And then I ended up going back again with still always tweaking and anything that you would like to see in 2019.
Of 2018 happened in November when it last.
I've enjoyed it. Personally, I enjoy this a whole lot more than I enjoyed
this exercise. You know, there's a little bit of homework in
it all in. I'm just like this, and I always my person. Whoa, when can I get home so I can get my?
You know, it's like I think
it's with everything.
I'll get to that. Let's see. So we're at number
2. Kind of become a quote public because those are stories that we've told multiple times and we've reaccessed. But when I think of this year, I kind of thought that I didn't.
And I'm trying to put together a moment of the year because Lodge comes from that. And given that we have not shared these with each other,
I did, and it was not easy to rank. And also, I think I can tell by looking at in the dream, it was just the same thing.
It was like
a memory.
Shock, and still is in a lot of ways, especially for my
over the summer, winter.
A Burger King.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't call it that because there was a guy in Australia.
This thing that we have to be at because all our time is so structured.
I don't know, since that time I went to Yosemite just out of college.
Really? Football started, which for something of ever. You can also on iTunes or wherever music is available, right? During that time,
the puppies, so it became even that much more special. And I feel like I can go out.
Will be again.
I think I totally relate to that. I think because there's another. It's like we're adopted better if you're not a dad.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it on me, us doing 3 videos a day.
You know,
I like to
trauma, and
as you've already mentioned,
like, what is it about me? How can I continue? We have a bean.
I don't know what your number 1 is. Better be good. It's all right. That space. So it's. And with parents
for travel, in my mind, is
and they changed the name of.
But there was a specific moment.
Would even move up the ranks, like, oh, because it's your unstructured dad
hat, and because and the tour documentary is that you're going to be a little bit more of a specific. This is this you where I'm in the. So if those were your favorite memories, then we've got something to talk about.
My number 8, but have this ideal moment where Chrissy and I are having, some time just go away.
Yeah. For me, I had found this way to kind of deal creatively. So number 3 for me, I went with a very general thing, but I do have
that memory is that packet. So I think I totally
which is surfing
him. So here I am.
So I've already talked about the tour aspect of means something. Again, it's just like you're trying to
20 minutes
and like
you know what I'm about to say, creating space.
But
for it to become something. In May, it was the tragic, unexpected death of my uncle. But I have reflected on it even more, and it has increased in
the specific memory that sticks in my mind is
I did it by month just so I would have a list, and that became a journal entry now.
And leaves his skis way up high, and you have to.
Hopefully,
you know what I'm saying?
We went on the day trip. Was fate saying, I want this Spotify. I was able to tap into maybe losing one. I was actually no more. Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't said anything, and I'm not gonna go into depth for it, but it's
the video. And so we went out to the farm.
Somebody else cried. But yet, so get a
happy holidays, and may your years always come to a close. So that's my number 10. Now let's go with naked titties.
I didn't see any titties. Elective.
Elective. It was
Okay.
the first elective thing that they both showed up at. And my cousin Britton, who I've talked about, came out here for the first time. He was on The Voice.
Which is a great way to just forget about your kid.
Sneak in another one as part of that, because then that was in May, and then Christy took me
Dogs.
in February.
Problem. And we never, with putting this, and also we got really excited about and continuing to work.
And then that was a very surreal moment where it was like there was just
The album just good to go now. So even just based on your first one, get later in life. But in the moment, this is a good setup.
the Tour of Mythicality stage show where we encapsulated
But if I had called you on the weekend and said, I'm ranking mine.
right this Christmas movie, it was the wrong time of year.
Well,
And it may be okay. That was an investment. Cool.
that's one of the reasons that we do the game night. Me did not start in 2018. It started at youtube.com/earbiscuits.
These super cute puppies with my kids, and it was enjoy each moment.
20s, you're experiencing these like just changes on a mountain, and you're like, this is being a dad. Try to sleep on one.
But we're driving back, and we're like,
On the thing that we can't talk about.
right. I didn't put a 4-wheeler thingy, but as we're loading them up,
Yeah, it's all
pre-order all of
pre-order.
it.
Yeah. Just buy it blindly, basically, is what pre-order.
Good moment. So for me, 7A was saying like the lights up on me and it's down on now. In
What
order
do
to
you
realize
think
this.
it would cost? And how much?
So I'll go back to that moment. Little did any of us know when we were eating, I don't know, all of that still paying.
And I'm gonna talk. If we
The
hired,
county.
if we like put his, your son falls and slides down the mountain. This is when I went to Avila Beach, and what's the name of that restaurant?
Gladstones.
Gladstones.
Yeah.
Special. So that's the tour portion, and sort of
That stopped. I'm so relieved that stopped. After that,
too.
we're going and we'll see someone who knows how to take photos and pay. It's worth whatever you want to pay them.
2018 for just a little bit longer.
So I have ranked my list, almost winning the whole thing. Sleeping in the back of the RV, and we were, and I'm like, well, son, you just
You to grow.
I preempted your number 2, but that's okay. From
That reminds me, because I didn't.
hand wringing behind the scenes stuff, ending my hike. It was like a magical experience.
Started beginning to understand why I am the way that. To me, it's been a highlight. Definitely, it made respond to it in the way that you would have hoped.
Like we're gonna drastically change. Anyway,
and
that's my number. But one of those
structures and
opportunity to pour ourselves in. No pun intended.
That's actually not anywhere close. These got shifted off as I sifted through the memories.
It's important that you create this and it becomes an Ear Biscuits.
It's going to allow us. It was
voice. He was just starting to compete, and they hold him up in that hotel, and he couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And my uncle, their dad or husband, and 22-minute version of GMM. When each, you know what? I want to go ahead and skip to one in an effort. I didn't mean to distract you. I didn't think you could see me. If I,
but I'll just say it again.
Almost a little crazy for.
That's healthy.
I think that is healthy. Well, let's decide. Was our last Tour of Mythicality show. We were on the things as big, like headed to those caverns that I told you about, and we're on develop in terms of his self-confidence. It was I have when I'm just. Are you serious?
I typically time that a little bit better.
Space that then things can happen, and then a lot of times being a ringmaster.
I have some specifics. It was our trip to Australia and Fiji. So that's.
But it's.
But let me just describe it at a high level. Tell a story about him and make some. I'm so independent.
I've got this picture of.
And there were
moment of 20 as a family, or even things Christy and I did. It's Dad Day with Lily.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else podcasts are available. I lumped the state fair into the tour. It's up and just step.
And then Mike was really cool and gracious to actually be excited about it. Worked and shot for in February.
Yeah, and
we're looking.
But anyway,
we're not fooled, kids. That's a Burger King.
This
says very
excited. It says the thing that I have thought about this year is, when
story where it's like, and I got hurt, type of thing. Yeah. Nobody wants a top 10 list that's not ranked.
Yeah, you got to rank it. It's 20. Australia from Melbourne had told us that we should go to. We should lower them so you can have.
Taking the main interstate highway, we went off on Route 66. Make a list for me.
Oh yeah. I'm walking. First of all, that restaurant is really interesting because, and I think.
Our Burger King.
Hungry Jack's.
Yep.
Isn't that what it's called?
That was it.
But I can
had all these months since it was that. So many of my, honestly, replaced on my list, me going right at the end. But it is appropriate that we're having this conversation now because this is the last.
If you're talking about Route 66.
But, I mean, the kids were.
You guys are going to think about it. And confusion about like what that was all about. And I think the general consensus.
Sorry, friends. Okay. So my number.
Oh, it's a euphemism for having to Pete.
Yeah,
Pete.
We both.
When if we're paying for a trip, if we're paying to I've got some.
And it was just, man, we've.
And Mike Edwards.
Oh,
Like
when we first met, our first impressions of each other. And I remember to wish just
Headwear right now. This is
gotta take my cans off first.
These are
brought it up and it was in storage there in the barn, just adjacent to where we were. And like I look over,
you have to be on your back.
It's usually
on your stomach.
But it,
a lot of
like amazing Route 66 scene from Car
winter coat, which made you look like. You guys decided
the most grueling hike I've ever done, and like.
I gotta get it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll skip those, and then maybe something that happened to me.
And then you just take it, and I'm giving it to him while he does it, and like Lando takes his first,
and you just like walking across his
turns. But this is what I began to appreciate. It was the first time. Oh my gosh, he didn't tell me that it was here.
Miss anything?
Oh gosh. Okay, so what's your number? Should be vacation. It's like don't.
But it wasn't a favorite memory of mine.
And then you know what?
When we're obviously my boys, one time after that,
I had a dream of what you eat at Denny's, a super slam.
No,
that's social.
It's very difficult to take it in and appreciate it
which is higher than number one. If I've already made a number one.
Why are you trying to leverage something from somebody? So I would say
media and seeing all of these birthday wishes from people. I'm like,
January or February.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was pretty early in the year. And the thing
about the eggs.
It just isn't as kind of making the decision to begin working on it. Photos on my camera.
That thing was happening.
Of kind of
nervous. She seemed very confident having done this a lot.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Right before he left, it was the last time that I saw my papa.
I mean, again, good enough to
work over there with it, and it was.
And I just remember thinking, we're in Australia, man. Like this stuff work on, but
don't forget to click the circular icon to subscribe.
Thanks for being your mythical. It's again, you kind of want it to be, and is kind of exploring that. The big vacation that we had, which I kind of feel like in a lot of ways to your house on the road, and also kind of some of our perspective about the tour.
Glad that we did that. I didn't want to re-talk about it, honestly.
Yeah, I know. So, that's what I experienced that I didn't take photos for. And then I was able to, then I looked at our and I could run into a tree at any point. But I don't really go that fast.
On The Voice, like his mom or his dad or something about being on The Voice, and it was very early on. He ended up on a moment that
wasn't a good idea.
And then within that space, things can happen because some
day after we had gotten to the hotel in Melbourne and we were
that is meaningful to you, I highly recommend getting. I
had a significant relational moment with my wife in Palm Springs.
I'm looking at you now. I'm looking across the stage. You're doing the last.
Hell yeah.
I'm a specimen.
Oh gosh. Do you want to go ahead in the summer? He has practice really early in the morning.
And because I knew. Oh yeah.
Headwear at mythical.store, link is putting on that happen is something.
Right.
And so it's really cool finally.
Yeah. And then yeah, sure. Right now, I will eat the whole thing.
And this is
even bigger and better. Enjoy it as much as me. And I started annoying people with like for 3. That it's like not that I didn't do that on some degree, and I hope that the memory will loom large.
They were getting to puppies, so I was alone 20 minutes in the bathroom.
No, that
like
was,
every other day.
That's every other. A lot about my personality.
Just kind of coalescing something that we will never do again, that you can never see way up and the whole way down. And wow. Appreciate you saying that because I think it was just okay. I'll narrow down to an interesting moment. It was
at all because of what it allowed us to do and how it because it shakes up your normal routine. It tends to be that
will happen and have happened.
Yeah.
Within the context of breakfast.
Yeah.
It's not. So
I didn't get to that.
Those three things put it together into the world of. Yeah.
Weird.
It was weird, and it helped me.
And anyway,
smelled like stinky kids.
Yeah. It's like a ball pit. We like to do other things other than GMM. We got other ideas like a Christmas movie. We'll have Instagram.
You the speaker, like going to the museum, that was good, but it's like it actually came. Is it raining in here? Or is it just me at the top of the mountain?
It's not just about some of the more obvious things which we've both been doing, which is like
special.
I thought you were gonna say
isolates the type of things that you want to have. The largest crowds we've ever done this show to. In fact, wasn't it the largest? I think we met in passing a few times, but in April that was the first.
That was very significant. That's folded into that Palm Springs.
Whenever,
no matter how much you charge,
right?
If you let kids in there with their bridge and that walking through. No, it's not. I mean, it wasn't in any of the mythical.store.
We're not giving notes on our merch. We're just trying to sell it.
Mythical.store headwear. May your years always come to a close without clothes.
On the open road where you feel like you could see for hundreds of miles.
In terms of like the way that I see myself or think about myself, I went because these are new options. This is I would call that Angelus at the Wiltern.
Instrumental playlist that I put on my earbuds right day. We were up on this rooftop pool.
Then even in your during your college time and don't start driving if you can't feel your arms.
But I'm like, I had a headache about the start of our friendship. Really call it a journal, but I do journal some thoughts that I have there, and there's dates associated.
This is the time I was looking at you
driving through this.
Tough to find in Los Angeles, a place that has so many people, but it can be very difficult.
Okay,
but I
great.
As to what the reality is. I would explain this a little
about creating.
Like when you shaved your grandfather's face and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't about extensively.
Right. For making a conscious decision. This is
shutting down. And also to have meaningful friendships that aren't shallow and aren't.
Yeah, I think, I decided not to put.
Talked about before. Something's gonna happen. This is gonna shake things up. This is gonna leave very hesitant to do it because we had something that was a very particular.
Again, we've talked.
And then kind of the collaborative process that has ensued since
well, it's like 2 years from
that. But I have 2 moments. Curate, and it was just this is way. But it was the kind of thing that the amount of resources never solved that problem. Each other and like earlier in your marriage.
Yeah.
And then you kind of settle into your marriage and the way he was in your honorable mention or vice versa. So
it's potential.
Yeah.
Or failed.
Yeah.
Arm and saw the puppies, and I prairie. And I just remember that moment where nothing. Yeah.
And that's like they funnel the sulfur water into your room or your deck or whatever.
Bred and trained, along with my Aunt TC, these. I think officially I will probably put that at my 0.
Frozen in time?
Frozen in time.
Right.
Actually, you need to dislodge.
It's when you get your wife
Jessie
out of the lodge. You dislodge her. That's just a memory.
Seeing the kids, we'd all pile in the car and we'd drive.
I was like, I'm gonna take them to breakfast every Tuesday. Like
they, a hunter, and he had these. He
died.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life, you know. I'm like, I'm pretty healthy in general.
And then even
Big Bear, our families went together to this.
Like, there's all these things wrapped up into this goofy.
When you've been married for.
Maybe we should pick it back up because we're really in the mood, man.
That's within that trip. And I think this says something about the way that I see travel.
Led to so much. Concert at the North Carolina State Fair was my other half of my. And how many of them over? Okay.
And I kind of
my moment. That's the last show. All right, let's get into your number 9 day and my wife's birthday together.
Moments as well. But the idea of like, well, let me say something that's arguably one of the sad. It's significantly different now. I don't know. Like I think Wolfgang Puck is like buying it or something. I don't know when that's happened. Expanding our studio physically, we endured.
It was like such an unexpected and terrible tour, and because I was like, okay, you're out here doing this thing.
We're working on
my number 8 in April. Was when
and this is something we talk about relatively often about.
Went on both my arms. They were both dead.
How would you do that? And there's a lot of work. You hear people talking about the work that they're doing.
7th top.
While watching a commercial,
the Lion King trailer for your photos, because
she did it and she learned how to ski basically, and then it's like, I have a horrible
that then we were gonna
like. This was such a good choice.
It was the clearest it's ever been in LA. Again, it was
the highlight for me of the trip. Was something that
I want to really get into it again in detail on the podcast.
Why don't you go ahead? People were singing.
We're going to London. When he was in the accident, was there. It had overturned. Reading my birthday compliments. Sunbathe. I'm not gonna rank these, but that time.
Right. If reference, go ahead and mention yours.
Get it out of the way. So yeah, I mean, the kids are getting like an older brother, basically.
That's number 1. No specific moment. I won't talk about like a moment and thing most people wanted to begin with, but we don't regret it.
Keys has helped you produce, and the last one, we're on stage in front of one.
You do question what people's motivations for pushback would we get from like the county,
and that jogged a few memories.
We're talking about being naked on a hot tub, and then I accidentally put the word voice going out.
But it was a lot of fun, and either direction in the. That's what's going to happen in January. We're all super excited.
I won't cry. I don't have sadness about those things. A very significant moment for me.
Yeah, that was.
Other people access hot tubs in. They can't see you, so nakedity.
Concept for a Christmas movie. There's no reason.
Another, we can be squeezed. And making sure that we've got. Unlike you, I have peripheral vision.
Right in a Christmas movie in July.
Because I'm gone.
High note.
Yeah, and there were some incredible things created in that. Again, it's kind
of because.
Oh yeah, that was what I was saying as well.
Because it
but yet not deal with what's going on inside and kind of the
friends were there. Basically, all of my friends. Horrible event this time. So it create.
If that's not warm enough for you,
how much? Like
and basically said we've got this new program.
I had this playlist. This like you having your breakfast with your boys, and I'm looking on
growing up, and you're going through.
It actually led to that. Like
one of those moments this year.
lots of our book of when my mom and Lewis were at my dad's with the tour of Mythicality closed.
This kind of thing. And for the tour of Mythicality took place in 2017.
But it was an exercise in solitude. My mom and dad had been at an event besides, I guess, my high school play, and then I'm like,
Super clear.
I come into work, and I
had a bunch of. I had all the videos that we created that night. So he can't do it again. Started working on it. Again, I it's kind of the.
when you on.
And then we get to this island, and there's no dock, and they just drive the boat.
My number 3 is my birth.
Pesci had on in Home Alone. He didn't cover his face because he was Pesci. Didn't make my top 10.
Being different made it a moment for me.
For me, I was so kind of more in like a brain.
Semi-seminal.
She's not so much into it.
I detailed how instead of you just said that. Yeah. All I'll say.
And so it kind of stalled out.
It's kind of interesting that
to something, and then when it started,
fresh, and I talked about it very recent. But the reason why I ranked this one a little bit higher was because it's much.
Well,
you know,
I think
carve
that
out some time. You did
part of my photo album.
Oh, okay. Is that how it was? Morning was one of the best moments. Carved out time in 2019 for us to have extended vacation.
I'm in therapy for this, for my cat hatred. And also get them to actually learn how to ski.
It was they had basically.
But anyway, and we did that for half of the year. Also, the most sort of, you're like, I got to go back down the same daggum trail, and it's gonna hurt my knees.
Have Thanksgiving separate.
Right.
Yeah.
Structure. That's why I always like a competition.
2 months later. When we, so you know, our family went through a lot this. Is
I-
that why your eyes are floating? Yeah, get out of here. I'm gonna keep going through my list.
Eyes are floating. No, we decided to, instead of focusing on bringing people in
down to that moment, like
sort of a second journey in my life.
Biscuits. And then I 19
season starts January 7th, but also
for me, my kids learning to ski. At the January list on the right.
To watch more of our daily show, Good Mythical Morning, click the playlist on the left.
And don't.
I had a great childhood. I didn't experience like.
2 is the RV trip we took.
Take it off and show the inside.
Show the inside.
Well, that certainly wasn't clear. Stories from the tour.
This thing where you're like, you have this thing as a dad.
Moment that our family has in
people
yeah.
you would choose to do. I was glad that, and then I was like, well, what things that isn't the dynamic of.
Okay, well, thanks for that.
And then like being like, all right, let's just do this thing all together. 100% overlap.
Because you've looked at my, you know, I'm not going to be cheesy and try to draw some sort of like the sweet spot for me.
Yeah.
We were like, and we went to an interactive hands-on museum.
In our old schedule,
we made a decision that like, okay, if this thing doesn't, rendition of this show that we worked so hard on and that we took
morning, and then it's like
to that mountaintop, and it ended up being like a
would go to these lessons because you can kind of put the younger kids into these all-day lessons.
To just make a shameless plug
Good.
Of ours. I would preserving those memories. So I was very, it doesn't really accommodate adults that well. And so you're quite
awesome stuff. And we want Good Mythical and found the best one out, and I didn't feel from coffee to tea, but
I've already had my coffee this morning.
Just as some
Good tree.
I don't go that fast. I take it pretty pulling on our that was a memory for me when you
heard, and that's how he had died.
Yeah. Got like
it was a 100% overlap. That was
weekly in 2018.
Okay.
Back up on top. That's the Pesci look. Rolled, but his didn't say mythical.
You don't have to. That's exactly what I did too.
I think that's what most rational that's happened. We like sang a little song, and then you're kind of getting the vibe of the crowd.
Playlist timed out to end as I was our Instagram.
Right. Uh-huh.
Is that how I'm gonna get back?
It
was in
ours.
between.
Yeah, it's like
just took my jacket off.
I didn't miss anything. But I did pick gear.
Our wives and kids will probably be upset that like.
Well, considering
I don't think I told I might have mentioned this to you, but I don't think I told anybody else. I decided,
that again, it was the beginning of the trip. Now the rest of the trip was great. Something that is, but
a big thing in my mind. So again, I talked about it recently. So
well,
I'm just going to say,
I got some peat moss. I got some peat moss I need to get out. Now here's number 2, because it's one of those really LA things to talk about. It never hurts to put the truth out there. So it's gonna change your day.
A 2-day trip.
Peed it into my mouth.
Which is one of the top episodes of the year.
The moment you had with your
every other year when we
3 + 1.
And when I look back at our calendar, like I couldn't believe the way
reason started
earlier because I ranked them differently on my list.
Right. And I know that you know what I'm saying? But no, he had it exactly the way you had it before. I can't remember what day it was. It isn't happening right now for reasons I'll explain in a second. About who you know, so I can then do this thing that I want to do. And his son was sick.
We get off. We're like taking some pictures. There's just a moment of joy in that she was able to plan something just with one of my kids, and
pointing things out and being like, "Isn't this great?"
Right.
I got to learn to keep that inside.
It happened, and we even talked about it on here, and that is at Thanksgiving.
We're in that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you remember our Instagram, Stina, a young adult, to live for the term discipline, my kid
logo featuring the Randler together on iTunes. How? I
don't know.
You're kind of like talking about what was happening in our lives, and that was a moment there where.
And you're number 1. Yeah, and I think they
documented our travels while we were,
and I've got
in their minds as they get older, but finding like unstructured creative time
the best. And then I told you that right before we did this, and you said that's a bad idea. You should rank these
with my boys a bunch. Jesse, not just adults being vulnerable with one. Be me, you just be the same guy.
And it was, I didn't make it all the way.
Very similar to what I was talking about earlier. That
got to ski again. Got just
therapy.
Is that it?
And we thought about that one thing that we're like, actually that is
the moment. What I suggest we do is that we alternate presenting our 10th and then go down. I think we're very excited.
But it was it's a little different. Is it called something different? It's called something different. Yeah.
It was not called change our schedule and how we work, so that it
and you're trying to create those memories that they'll look back and they'll be like
reflection playlist to end it. Just
suits. Of course, you were in a bathing suit, and first of all,
that it may not be specifically shared.
I am like my personality is the way that I am.
Involved actually a lot. I don't know how you went about this. Did you just?
I find that, and I've talked. The Australia-Fiji trip is higher up on my list.
Of course, but is that the first Rhett and Link cat hate? That was my fault.
I challenge you to make a documentary about the. She's totally fine with us going, as if I'm registering all the ways that it's better than anything that I've ever experienced.
I remember you specifically. It's a top moment where
people and money that would come into our
after. So the family went home for the.
But it was the moment where the expectations are the highest, and I talk about travel expectations and how you.
Carolina, you need to be in Nashville or Los Angeles or.
Beginning of that.
Which I was listening to some music, reading my, and
there's got to be another Disney reference.
But the kid,
you should watch Dogs on Netflix. It's a documentary series with.
I look over to the left, and the tractor that my uncle was on. But it was my birthday.
We've talked about on the.
As I look through a lot of the photos and all the stuff we did as,
based on.
Good.
Well, my number 1 is in one sense because that is
vacations, and we're kind of earmarking some of that time and trying to figure it out. So I'm,
with your clothes on,
or actually not.
That was going to be and anyway.
The Hungry Jacks.
I'm really I get very excited about circumstances, and I want
There's only a few things you should go in.
You're saying they could have. Oh, number 9 for me is. The fact that I kind of discovered,
again, that was February. In June,
was like, so what do you guys? What's happening today? And I'm like, oh no,
Yeah. It encapsulates the
works, but yeah, I saw it on there. Maybe I just saw pictures. Figuring some things out. I feel like I'm at the very beginning to create those dad moments. Everyone around me to enjoy. And you can kind of see people in the first few rows.
we can talk about it and it won't just you know, I think this is a very, I don't know if it's just in our friend group, but there's a lot of creative.
Talk to them about their day, and I'm gonna give them some fatherly wisdom.
We spent the night there, we had a nice dinner, and
took a really
it was an exhilarating moment that or something goes right and you're there.
The way that it is. Why I got help with that, but I think that the with my boys, which is something that I started to do on the side of a mountain and kind of looking up point.
We're future forward, so see how many of these. Then there's this thing, you can go over there right now and subscribe to that YouTube channel, youtube.com/earbisluted. I'm so glad we did that. Like I did it just because it seemed in the wake of
tries to keep my eye. Oh,
I wonder if that got affected by the fires. It's like a magical moment of.
Were you referencing the time and
completion?
Like, see what happens.
Well, and I think that the Instagram was part of the experience.
Yeah, well, adding a little bit of ostrich. You didn't think you were seeing. We're working on something that's pulling.
I've got all these people tweeting at me about how much they want me to have a
company in order to make this happen.
Think the same thing, and then maybe they'll. My 7th top moment.
AI to do that. iTunes, and you don't just get the special. But he would get out a particular idea. Then we came back and discussed it with Stevie, and she pointed out why it sounds weird in one sense, since it's just a town that is east of.
That you climb up inside, and it's like the kids climb up inside.
On trust.
Just trust us.
Yeah.
Just trust us.
It's a great. There is a way to see it, because when we did the show in Los Angeles
version, I can totally believe, and I'm not going to argue with it being noise
in the way that I.
It's appreciate that. Yeah, that was a very special.
I was like, I want there to be some regular thing that we do, that like tour in general.
And so that whole event is you know, we loaded the
display at
a house, but
able to access things from our childhood, like for the book and that kind of thing. But like if you ask me,
because we weren't competing, but there was a competition. That's
okay.
So half of I mean, our personal lives are going to drastically change.
Where we're giving people a bunch of resources to make
that on the list, because
we can't.
It's so frustrating, but it's hard not to put it on the list because it's the
and
fluffy
one sitting,
the field, and we're going to test this.
More of it. We were both like, wow, getting a lot of talented people in here. A lot of really incredible things happen.
Where it's like once a month, taking one kid
morning to be a part of it. Was a little more complicated than that. They want us to make a details.
Okay, there you go.
Very excited about.
Okay. All right, how you feeling?
Man,
you're back. You didn't miss anything. I just wearing it,
and it was summer. But
Slab City, which is another exercise in solitude, which I'll just honorably mention.
And I was like fighting off like my. It's more live, but I really like it as a mission. That's why if you're all gonna get together, somebody should win something, and like
number 7. I gave away half of my number, except I went in the thing with him and I was crawling around inside of it, and we were having to go probably more than his friends or things like that. They sell these, and it was just a special moment for us that was like nothing happened.
Personality is, if I enjoy it a lot personally, but I enjoy doing that kind of thing that you carry out your relationship.
After the funeral, and there was like of an exercise in solitude, just
doghouse.
I'll save that story for later, but we're not going to put him in the dog. I'm going to give more of the details.
I don't want to give the details. Just a quick reminder.
They turned it back over and brought.
I will eat both of our lists and your jean jacket. The hot tub that is on the deck in your room, but then
the bowling. But in going back through it, first of all,
moments or things that happen like when you're getting to know each other, those kind of moments become a little bit less because the lesson was apparently not very effective. But at least in the moment where we were
relate to it, that it's you can justify going into debt for a family vacation, which of course, it wasn't the first time I've met him.
Exciting stuff I'll talk about later because it's not happening anytime soon. But we did it for half of the year. We had to stop because once Locke's basketball.
A friendship and a relationship.
Years over that you had some honorable mentions. I also had some honorable mentions that I was like, that's what the kids are up.
It's like,
as much as
for you.
I'm looking forward to him being here. You might have
see if they're going to come when I call them and not just run around because I don't want to show favoritism to any of moments from my life. I just want to be able to many highlights from.
I'm like, man, I wish there was a zip line. You know what I'm saying? You get up there and why are you deciding to put a tea bag in your mouth right now?
He'll turn 19 right before he moves in with us.
Mm-hmm.
And as if it were
the most difficult things that I experienced growing up or whatever.
Great birthday.
Very steep?
Well, it's
very long.
It says more about me. Welcome to Special Moments of 2018 for you was what?
That's an uncharitable way to put it.
Dogs, and we were going to train and cheer and time constraints. Not
sort of just like you're sitting across from.
There's not much to it. Good time, and he was a little afraid to go up to the top without me going with. Get to hear you talk about.
I did have a good childhood. My parents did love me. For like just like picking up the camera and
because he refused to have his picture taken.
And it did make my list.
To go back and do that, but I'm saying that
is so sure.
So it's a highlight for me too. I kind of forgot with us, who's an aspiring musician, and it all started that April.
You know, it's like, and I realized that those are
dad's trip. I mean, the fact that we were able to
did before. Okay, well, you've already hit my number 2, which was ending GMM 22.
I've not looked.
I'm saying, man. I'm trying to keep my
before the next
to have some unstructured time. That was a good moment in a very new and exciting way. That I think is.
But I did it anyway.
And then I ended up going with my family to Mammoth, which was like next list about these trips.
Yeah.
And that was the first has gotten people to show up to see it. Yeah. And I just remember thinking that
yeah.
And then I was like, we went to
you actually weren't. My number 5 is in February and then comes back in June.
About it a little bit. But the thing, we actually are known for having a good memory in terms of like being. You kind of hinted at earlier.
It's a moment for us, just for our own benefit.
Yes.
I mean, kids, I'm catapulted to a positive memory. It's
all on our feet, and we were all going down the slopes. I was like,
starting in January, he's coming to live with us. Number 2 moment.
My number 2 moment is ending the extended version of Good Mythical. You would have probably that one would have been based on the way you talked about it. It would have been higher.
Yeah, I mean,
a very large amount of the friendships in this town are strategic, and they're intimate.
It wasn't really elective. Like talking to people, he was eating with everybody. It was the last time he left the funeral, and then one of the things that he always did was he was a big
to the shore, and we just roll our pants. It was one of those things where Mike said we talked about it
in September.
But even
though he's about to do it, like that moment when something goes wrong in one of your kids' lives and you've got to respond. The human chocolate fountain.
Oh goodness!
Beginning of the trip.
Yeah.
Because that's inevitably what happens with me. Because the other 2018, like Link said, and
launching back in October 2017, it went up into the summer of this.
But like people were kind of like dressed up. Central Coast.
Okay, yeah. That is a grand benefit song.
We recorded a studio version.
I mean, and yeah, I can move it up my list. Because,
you don't have to move it.
I'm not gonna move it. But
no, it was one of those things that like we were excited about certain elements,
and then it spirals up. Selfie that he so much of the meeting, and we have them all in the same repository. So you just like the other one represented something coming to a close. This represents then that wrapped it up. So that was a big moment.
Yes,
in our career.
That. First of all,
a couple of 2-parters.
I think I might have a 2-parter.
One of the top that encouraging him, hey, if you want to make it in as an artist, as a musician, at least to
connected with another
stuck in. My aunt was able to find a little bit of joy in sharing
another kind of show. We were like, we can't. We've got GMM.
Really, I'm just saying that there was for like physical constraints because that you've talked about, and there's so many more. I'll just and we wish
that's I mean
wrestling
Grand Slam.
Great.
Yeah. Most of the time, it's like, well, we gotta go surfing, but we gotta get back because we have a meeting or we have.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So
I gotta take a whiz real quick.
Well, now that I've been waiting to do it for
about who has done what and who therapy has been significant for me because it represents sort of the beginning.
And
you heard it here. Now there's a teaser.
Plus,
yes,
something does happen, I'll be here for it. Or this is a space where
hats and people and all the wonderful
uncle, my dad's sisters. Now I went through the photos. I think I'm gonna put together a book. I think I'm gonna do that this year.
You can get them in this moment.
The end of it.
Well, that's typically not out that it wasn't happening. Most places, you can YouTube approach stuff. That's just kind of the surface level talking about it.
We each have like a monologue that we. It's your number one.
It's affecting me physically, and I was like, I just need somebody to help me. Starting in 2019, all the video,
YouTube famous, is you got a lot of people.
Yes, so we have produced our own special. Decided that they didn't want any more, and like they were going to a restaurant, but we were like in bathing.
Don't do it.
So I need glasses. That's another thing that might.
I mean, once we got out of our own driveway, it's just like which
maybe you
can get away with anything in this town,
and but we
will still come out. It's so hard. All of those moments are spectacular. This amazing overlook, and Lando's like, Dad, how?
Because it's higher up. When you get older, when you have kids, and life, I combine the word nakedness and nativity, which there's
re-experienced it via dream with Lando. Like that was an honorable minute, and then I'm gonna have a guest room. But
the process was you had to. During the summer, in general, we were
come up with them. So that we could share them.
Have a great time, but in the moment, I cannot get away from it. Your day to day,
right? I even heard someone say, "Man, this is on a
with them by like I'm gonna
continue
exercise."
Speaking of exercise, and then I was like, "I'm not."
You're trying to create these experiences. You say the kids are only going to be with us for this much longer.
We were filming, but here, and then it ended. So you get a much at the moment. Yeah.
Before we go into our ad break.
Start with your number 10. Without looking back at the calendar, I tend to forget how much. So it was nice to.
I think they're just.
I don't know exactly what's going to fill the space, but you've set parameters that like this is who I.
More hard to define.
The two of us celebrating my birthday.
Didn't experience those people, but I realize it's not something that happens very often. Outside and documented the whole thing.
Do you remember when this was? And 7 already.
Sorry.
I'm not. So it's a lot of prep, a lot of creative. It's in order to meet him for dinner, and whoever would be in confined space. I am in no way saying that.
But your kind of relationships that I have, how does that affect what kind of father I am, and what kind of husband I am, what kind of friend I am?
And but what I would say a lot about our relationships with our family.
100% sure that there was not a trip. Did make my list.
Okay. From like a million pictures from 2018. It's going to take it from an album of
top 10 memories of 2018. Experience as a family on horseback. But also some good friends of ours got to play different things some that we're working on now, some that we decided weren't.
Me and the hike.
We were like, I'm going to take my kid.
It's not like they could just get rid of it. That's the dogs and
I didn't have all the lyrics down. I didn't have all the chords down. It was it. Yeah. Therapy to go back to the old school version of GMM, which is what begins to.
I think you've heard some tidbits of some of these stories, but I think in that light we should reassess. It was like make this thing happen.
Getting our schedule in order.
A rooftop pool. Take photos, which if you've got a big party.
But then the breakthrough for me, or the beginning of a breakthrough, is when I
right at the top of the year.
Yeah, so number 8
To see. So that was it.
Even more off.
It turns out that then, well, I'll just say, it was the last
In all southern town.
I bet
if you combine those two things.
I bet that's the thing. Yeah, do you want already
branding problem?
Already got problems. So schedule to the point where like I have the lead.
And then I just cry the whole time every episode.
Is that when they're sacrificing cats, like when the opening credits?
Well, and speaking of, it's that moment where you're talking and the light's on you.
You get somebody to do that. In terms of like, and I was like, wow.
Or just personal
level of vulnerability.
When they're gonna really need, including people chosen not to come.
Yeah, just like
stars, and we're like, we got the app out, and we're like,
all these honey time that we met. In fact, it was on our Instagram versus guys. I'm coming in.
Has been this incredible.
Fingering question is like, wow. Having heard me talk about it, why is that not higher?
I think I know what it is.
My digital journal. Don't get self-conscious. It's
an idea for Christmas. It feels like to not be here.
Yeah.
But make sure you don't miss an episode. Follow the link.
That was
shipping everyone. And I literally, the first episode,
like the ratio standpoint of like fans, it wasn't like one of those stories that then show up. And I think defining moment and makes my number 4 for the year. Nothing happens, and you need to have faith that like we have this moment where when
I'll just preview that one moment. So, and really assisted by therapy, but the titty.
Say it again, brother.
Into negativity. To make it just about the two of us. Number 5. This is the year that I discovered Palm option. You can continue on.
I'm not,
or you can pause it. It's up to you.
I'm gonna pause it. Yeah, and
because it was very special, and it is special. And
we can hear your number 1. Normal celebrities. A happy birthday.
Because
there's more of a sense of connection of our friend Mike. It doesn't involve taco.
We still flirted with that a little bit, and then we kind of in that stretch.
Wow, so I link.
And I'm Rhett. This week at the round table of dinner.
I'm with for this amount of time. That's a moment within the context of Good Mythical.
Feel about that, but I do appreciate you helping. And then you're like, I don't know
what month this was. Because I need to add this to my list.
It was to
my
it shows you that. Okay, well, we've got a lot more to go, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, we want to let you know that
I ushered in my son's first selfie.
Have a bunch of going inside and figure
the right time, and it was.
But I was just like, I'm going to take them because I don't take them to school.
Okay, we can. Let's go big.
Between me and my therapist, of all the things that we did that you have on your back that you're going to reveal right now.
If we can go some other places.
Yeah, the tour.
Yeah.
And included the tour. I've talked about every time I take a hike and I get to the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
I'm more.
Quail, right.
Etc. Etc. And all too often it's
my Aunt TC with my kids holding these like newborn puppies
at that restaurant.
Oh yeah. Is
Chocolate Pete.
Very much beneficial in Lincoln. But this particular one's the first one I did was with Lando.
Well, galore. Skiing with my family.
Yes.
As a thing.
That was in January. One on my list will be one of yours that's higher ranking on your list. You can go ahead and mention it. I am so grateful when I look back at the first half of our year at the calendar.
I like to do that.
I know. I don't sleep on my side. I guess I either sleep on my back or I sleep.
Now, you could not make this documentary about cat.
I have to put it on my list though.
Whoops.
It doesn't feel like this anymore. And we've succeeded at that. And that I was like.
That we'll be back January 7th. And then year of ear biscuits. We changed things a little bit. As you know, we're always changing.
Looking back at it, but that was a big moment.
But
eating space phraseology, but it's perfect for this because it's like you.
I am at the gym or here before it's time to take them to school, and everyone.
Well, I didn't put it in these specific.
Wrong with me. At my.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below.